guys, thank you so much for joining me in another video. So I thought after watching the recent Celine Fall Winter 2023 collection, we look at the clothes, we look at the handbags, and we just talk about it. This fashion show actually premiered months and months and months ago. But I think the reason why they're dropping this video now, a lot of people were like, why are they doing this so many months after? And it's just like from a marketing perspective. This is around the time when we start seeing the fall winter collections, end of summer, start appearing in stores. So I thought we would take a look at this collection. We'll look at some of the quintessential Eddie Sliman pieces. We'll also talk about some new themes and new things that we're seeing in this collection. We'll finish off with the bags. But with pretty much almost every collection, there's always reference to music or youth or underground culture. This time, specifically, the theme of indie music is felt, indie in the 2000s. And for some of his early Celine collections, we saw him go into sort of different themes. We saw the late 60s, early 70s. We saw him venture into TikTok. So this time around, he's actually going back in time around the mid 2000s, I think roughly around 20 years ago, where indie music was really on the rise. The collection opens with a series of phone dialing sounds. And by the way, I'll link the collection in the description box below. So we're hearing a series of analog phone dialing sounds. We're kind of taken back to the mid 2000s. While the internet was around, it wasn't as prevalent. He's trying to bring us back to this era. And of course, the sounds of the phones and the ringing sounds, it transitions to the song Hello Operator by the White Stripes. The White Stripes was one of the leading indie bands of the 2000s. So he's definitely bringing us back to this era with music. Jack White was actually recently at the men's show. He was like sitting in the front row. And I think it's also important to note the location. The Wiltern, this is a theater that's located in Los Angeles. It's been a place that has witnessed many legendary performances, and it's a prominent venue for very renowned musicians and artists. And the theater is very beautiful. It's very much that American Art Deco style, and I think it's very intentional with this venue. He wants you to feel this is both a fashion show slash concert. And at the end of the show, they had performances from Iggy Pop, The Strokes, Interpol, The Kills. So in terms of the Eddie Sliman staples that we are seeing, obviously we have leather jackets of all sorts. We've got leather pants. These are the kinds of leather pants that are rock star approved. I know that Mick Jagger famously wanted Eddie Sliman to make him pants that he could rock and roll in. We're seeing that theme in this collection. We're seeing these kind of blouson jackets, skinny scarves, skinny ties, unisex tuxedos, very much a nod to his YSL days in sort of this unisex way where women really wanted to wear his menswear. Of course, we're also seeing skinny jeans. I don't know, I feel like this is too soon for me personally. Maybe it's just a reminder I'm an aging millennial. And then we're seeing the varsity jackets. I feel these are very common with the menswear. And there's just this overall indie rock undertone that is defining this collection. And we're just seeing a continuation of a lot of the Eddie Sliman core signatures. Like a lot of the things that people will say like, oh, he does this all the time. At the end of the day, these are the things that sell. And I think for the Eddie Sliman customer, if you're looking for a leather jacket or you're looking for leather pants, look no further. Eddie Sliman has some options for you. So let's talk about some kind of new themes. Of course, I feel these are themes that we've probably seen in previous collections, but I think it's kind of the fusion of these themes that I think is very interesting. Yet there is this baseline of this age of indiness. Aesthetic is kind of at the root or at the base of this, and we're kind of having all these other aesthetics somehow mesh with indie. So we are seeing what is very interesting to me. I don't know how I feel about it, guys, but this is an aesthetic that has not been popular for quite some time. And I'm talking about this boho aesthetic. Now, when we think of boho, especially in the 2000s, it was very, very prevalent. Think of rock star girlfriends. Think of like Nicole Richie dating Good Charlotte band member. Kate Moss was dating Pete Doherty. These it girls were dating these rock stars. Like we're kind of seeing the look that a lot of these rock star girlfriends, Alexa Chung, that's kind of the vibe. This boho feeling. I think it harkens back to Jane Birkin. When I think of kind of that like Parisian bohemian 70s era fashion. And this is something that Eddie has been playing with several Celine collections, but we're seeing the fringes, the long scarves, but we're getting this very boho vibe that really hasn't been in style for a while. I think for obvious reasons, boho hasn't been trending simply because if you think about the pandemic, we've all been staying at home. That kind of free-spirited wanderlust music festival. That was just something we weren't doing. So on to another theme that is both very regal and rock and roll at the same time. And I don't know what else to call this other than it's kind of like Napoleon jackets, military jackets. Like here we have this bold, bright red. It feels very regal, but I also feel like it can be rock and roll. And the reason why I say this is it's very reminiscent of how Jimi Hendrix used to wear these kinds of jackets in this like rock and roll kind of way. And I just know that like Eddie Sliman takes huge inspiration from musicians when it comes to his style. You're not wearing this in a military way, you're wearing this in kind of like that musician rock and roll kind of way, where a lot of alternative and like rock musicians will kind of invert how we perceive authority and kind of going against authority. I feel this is something that like a really cool musician or someone with really bold stage presence will wear rock. And we're seeing, I feel, in more subtle ways, a lot of the jackets kind of have this historical military kind of accented details with a lot of the jackets. The next thing I want to talk about is just this overall theme of very heavy embellishments. Not even just the boho fringe. What we're seeing is this glitter fringe. And this is why I'm really glad we got to see some video footage. Honestly, I wish we could see slower and longer footage. I really would just love just to see clothes like move on their own, not all these flashing images. There's a lot of visual interest and movement and rhythm. The pictures really don't do this justice. Also, another thing, just while I'm looking at a lot of these accessories, a lot of these belts, where these belts are placed, lowered waistline is just a trend we're seeing in fashion. Definitely not my personal favorite. I definitely love like a higher waist, but this lower slung waistline is kind of interesting. Just a lot of buttoned accents. It really just reminds me of the mid 2000s, the gold buttons, the moto boots. It's just this very interesting fusion of boho and these military, almost like Napoleon-esque accents, very overly embellished. This is not minimal, this is not quiet, but it's not heavily logoed either, which was kind of like the mid 2000s. The accessories, things were very heavily embellished, which leads me to my next point, the handbags. So we are still seeing a continuation of the triomphe motif on the handbags. We're seeing kind of this trapezoidal east-west kind of shoulder bag. It's got like this chain strap, and we're also seeing a lot of bigger bags that really remind me of the mid 2000s. This is where we're back in 2004. There are three bags that we are seeing here, and this one particular style, I think this is called the Anita bag. What this really actually reminds me of is if you took a Michael Kors era boogie bag, so when he was at Celine, and you put a belt around it, you cinched it, and then this is the Celine Anita bag. And I also think it's much bigger. The bigger bags that we're seeing here, it's giving me Chloe by Phoebe Philo, kind of like the Chloe Paddington a little bit. Another bag that was on the runway, which is again extremely boho looking, the Annabelle bag with the fringe detailing. It doesn't get any more bohemian than this. And then another bag that we're seeing, this one's called the Abby bag. We've seen Kaya Gerber model this bag. If you're someone that really likes that boho slouchy vibe, these are definitely bags to consider, kind of giving me mid 2000s vibes. I guess we're at this stage in the 20-year trend cycles, and just the finale of this collection was very epic. We saw these beautiful glittering gowns. Again, this isn't quiet luxury, nor is this a continuation of pandemic comfort wear. When I look at these dresses and when I just look at the overall vibe of the show, it makes me want to go out. It makes me want to dress up again. Eddie Sliman is trying to channel kind of that mid 2000s era. We should be going out and we want to look our best, but we also want to have fun at the same time. For some people, maybe it kind of feels cringe. Maybe you kind of lived through some of this, but you can't deny there's something about this music when you listen to the White Stripes that makes me want to go out and have fun. And there was this really great interview where he was interviewed by Lizzie Goodman, who did a whole documentary about like the indie music scene from the 2000s. And he states this about this era: the energy of it, the profusion of exciting bands, the sense of community defined a golden age for indie music. The bands and their fans were extremely joyful, warm, and free-spirited. And it feels like this collection is just longing for that. With the pandemic, we've kind of lost this sense of going out into these spaces, whether they be like music venues or just places where we can hang out with our friends. Sure, we have now online communities and we have social media, the rise of TikTok, and I think he's explored those ideas in other collections, but I think there's just this longing to experience live music. Like there's nothing really like it. And especially when it was this era of these like indie bands and kind of the energy of these indie bands. I'm old enough, I'm 32, to remember this era of indie music in Toronto. There was a very, very vibrant indie music scene. You would kind of see the same people, and I remember just going to indie music concerts or like music festivals, and it was just so much fun. This is him giving the customer base what they want. This is totally fan service. He's not trying to revolutionize fashion here. He's just saying, let's go out to like music events, let's have fun, and I think that's just the general vibe of this. And I'm not gonna lie, when I hear the music, when I see some of these looks, it's like really taking me back to 2004 in a way that I kind of, I don't know, like I guess I forgot about, and I think that's the interesting thing about these 20-year fashion cycles. That's my video. Thank you so much for joining me in another one, and would love to know, was there anything from this collection that spoke to you? Thank you so much for joining me in another one, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.